For real.
Hendrick Truitt.
Can you put this on so I can see too?
Hendrick Truitt.
Okay.
What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? What's up? How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? All right. I'm glad everybody joined in. Everybody's joining in. Now, I'm just letting y'all know we're going to be having a podcast. And what I'm doing is I'm going to have a co-host during the podcast. And this is going to be the co-host. Marie, welcome to my family on IG.
He's tripping.
This is my family on
I'll
IG.
be behind the scenes. Hi, guys.
She's a Marine Corps veteran, and she brings a lot to the conversation. You would think after being a Marine, she'd be kind of more politically correct, but she's not, so
No.
Y'all going to have to excuse her. We're going to take it to the podcast. That's what we're working on now, and this is going to be my co-host on the podcast. But today, we're going to be talking about the Hendrick Truitt incident. What's up, y'all? What's up? I like the love y'all giving. The Hendrick Truitt incident, Jonesboro, Arkansas. The young man was in a car. He was at the gas station. It was late at night. The gas station was lit up, had everybody in it. Police officer walks up, has him at gunpoint. I watched the debate back and forth on the IG account. I love the debating. I love a lot of the conversations that's going on. But we just don't understand when it comes down to, holding the officer accountable. Officers get so much passes, and it just drives me crazy. Like, yeah, but when you got to say, yeah, but, then there's a problem. Yeah, but there's a problem. The officer did this, but the person did that. You can't equate a person who's not trained, who's in a situation where he possibly could be doing something wrong, or he's at its worst. When police are entered into a situation or they called, it's normally somebody's at their worst. And how they conduct themselves is totally different and how a professional trained law enforcement officer is supposed to conduct himself. So stop saying, yeah, but if this person did that, the officer wouldn't have. It doesn't work that way. People are not trained to deal with officers. Officers receive thousands of hours of training to deal with individuals, and there's a correct way to do that. Well, you want to show the clip? Show everybody the clip? You want to show everybody the clip?
Show it, or can I just? All right, I'm going to show the clip because we don't have our projector up today. And then I'll read. I was supposed to read.
Imperfect. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Facts. All right. While she finds she found it.
We're very concerned.
She's going to show you the clip that we're talking about.
From Ed Truitt's account, that's how things started out Sunday morning just after 3.
My hand in there.
He claims a hell no as hell a police officer pulled a gun on him. Truitt says for no reason at all.
Nah, I ain't moving. No, my hand in there.
Truitt claims he was parked at this closed Double Quick store meeting up with family before heading home to Jonesboro.
As we get to leaving out, a car jumped in front of me, so I hit my brakes to let them go and pass by. All you gotta do is drive off. What's what I was doing?
By that time, Truitt claims he was blocked in and couldn't move, so he became the center of attention, and things just escalated from there.
Come on now. Shoot me.
Truitt says afraid, he started filming with his cell phone just in case.
I started rolling because he jumped out. He jumped out the car with his gun.
He says the officer gave demands, but he didn't want to make even the slightest move.
Play it safe, and then he was like, that's fair to comply, but if I would have complied, I would have got killed.
In the video, you can hear the officer tell Truitt to turn off the car, that he won't shoot.
I'm not gonna shoot you.
He even tells him his body camera is on and rolling on the whole thing.
I'm filming too.
Truitt says he didn't believe the officer, so he didn't reach to turn the car off. Plus, he wanted his own proof aside from what video might surface later on. Truitt appears to have kept his hands out of the car's window the entire time. Eventually, his phone is dropped as it looks like he's pulled from the car. Police say they found a gun in the back of the car, which Truitt never denied having with him. Do you think that he was afraid that you had a gun in the car?
Yeah, probably so.
Truitt says a gun wasn't in his reach and officers had nothing to worry about. As far as he's concerned, in hindsight, he says there's nothing he would have done differently.
What I did saved my life. That's right.
All right, now I just see the video. I just had a question, well, not even a question, but Remy 209. He says, when I see, when I see a cop, my heart races, and I get nervous when I see a cop. And then, a cop will ask me, look, why are you so nervous? The crazy thing about that is when I first got out on the police force and we had to actually stop a person and there was a possible gun involved in the whole nine. So, and there was a group of people. So the officer was explaining certain tactics that you use to tell whether somebody is nervous or not. Because when you're nervous, you kind of have something to hide. So he put his hand on the guy's chest and he told me, look, feel this. So I put my hand in the guy's, his heart was racing. It was racing pretty fast. So, he went through his spill. I'm the rookie officer. He's there and he's pretty much doing his thing. He's showing me how it's done. So when he left, he said, you got any questions? And I was like, yo, man, you ever dealt with the cops when you was younger? And he was like, it was, yeah, we had cops and we spoke. And I was like, what kind of neighborhood you grew up in? He was like, middle class, working. I was like, yo, man, in certain environments in the community I come from, poor, low income area, project community, if the cops approach me, I get nervous too because I didn't know what to expect when I was dealing with them because they dealt with my community so aggressively, so excessively. So you are nervous because you don't know whether you're going to get hit or not, you're going to get thrown to the ground or not. So when I was like, I don't think that's a good tactic because I've been stopped and shook down by the police just because of the environment I'm from. And then all of a sudden, you put your hand over my heart and you wonder why my heart is beating fast. Because I'm sitting there thinking like, yo, is this dude going to hit me? He's going to throw me on the ground? So when I started explaining like, yo, that's a horrible measure to use if you're trying to figure out whether a person is dirty or not, or is he doing something wrong? Because when you do that and you use that as one of your elements, that's false. Because when I was younger, living in the projects, coming out, we had excessively aggressive officers. You get beat down, you get punched, so it would be very common for when they grab you, you like, oh, what's going to happen? So I started explaining this to this. I said, yo, I'm not using that. All the guys that was there, their hearts was racing, and they all none of them was bad. You ain't find no weapon on none of them, but you zoomed in because you felt this guy's chest and his heart was racing. And it just started really sinking in like, yo, these dudes really don't understand the community that they're policing. If you think, right, because my heart is racing because you approach me and you're questioning me and you trying to figure out something, I'm not going to be nervous. Like, I'm going to be nervous. So yeah, the Remy 203, yeah, I feel exactly what you're saying, bro. That just totally should not be one of the factors. But what I did realize, like, a lot of them felt that way, but nobody was telling them different. So I would tell them, I would say, yo, hold on, that's a dumbass factor that you're using, because most of where I come from, you going to get nervous when a cop grab you, people like, well, what you nervous for? You ain't got nothing to hide. If you come from the neighborhoods I come from, you're going to be nervous. So you need to try to use something else, because that's not that shouldn't be one of those factors.
I don't even think coming from the neighborhood you come from, because even as a female, I live in the suburbs, and even to this day, if I get pulled over, I'm nervous as hell. One, because obviously watching all these videos, I got a little bit even more on guard with the officers, but just not knowing what they're gonna do, how they're gonna approach you, what they're gonna find, what they're looking for. You know what I mean? You hear a lot of times officers planning things in your car or making up false reports and things of that nature. So even as someone who lived in the suburbs and a female, I'm still nervous my damn self when I get pulled over. And then now with the hostile environment that you're in, you just never know.
Oh, and the reason why I say the area I come from, because that's where my experience is happening.
No, I
and
get
then
that.
I go back to police that same community, so I see these tactics being used on individuals where
I get that.
Right?
I was raised in the hood. I'm from Jamaica, Queens. I'm saying as an adult, I'm from Jamaica, Queens. He was running the streets, okay? I was in the books. So I think our maybe the direction we were going in is different. But I'm just saying, even if you're from Jamaica, Queens, Bronx, New York, or somewhere in the suburbs, you know, you still have to be worried. You still, you know, people are still going to be on alert just the same way. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. People from lower income communities get it harsher. But I think even if you're just black in the suburbs, you're still going to get the same mistreatment all around.
Okay.
Because of yours. I know that not everybody don't want to say it's about your skin color, but because of that.
Right.
You get treated differently.
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And your experience is your experience, and I respect your experiences. Let's see. Now, what do you think about this video with this guy?
Listen. So we're going to call out, it's West Helena Police in West Helena, Arkansas. First off, when the cop realized that he was being recorded, he put the flashlight on his camera. You noticed that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You trying to hide your face.
Or trying to block
him from recording. Right. Either or.
Right.
He still was wrong.
Definitely.
For filming, because he knew he was wrong.
Right.
And then the other thing I noticed that I didn't like personally, I'm not going in order of the video. If you go back and you see the black cop come and approach the situation, and he didn't say nothing, but he's supposedly a good cop, right?
Right.
So why didn't he stop his...
I mean, we really don't know was he a good cop or not.
No, but you know when people say, why aren't cops speaking up, right?
Right.
And then there's other people who say, well, we have tons of good cops. To me, if you're a cop and you don't stop a situation that's aggressive from your partner, you're a bad cop. You're not a good cop.
Right.
Because you're not the one physically abusing a person.
Right. I agree with that.
Right.
You're a good cop, right? Your job is to go out and protect, serve, and provide your service that the community pays, taxpayers pay for you to provide. It doesn't stop when it comes down to police. If you see an officer doing something wrong,
right,
you're supposed to interject. And yes, I've seen that done. A lot of people haven't seen that done, so when they start beefing about there's no such thing as good cops, I totally understand that concept, because if all you see is the bad, you kind of tend to, your viewpoint is based on what you see in your experiences. Right. What I like to do is invite a bunch of law enforcement officers to come and be a part of the discussion. What I want you to do is have these civil conversations, debate them, start this conversation. Because when I was active, a lot of the conversations that I would give these officers, it was just new conversations. They didn't even understand the culture, the environment. So you can enlighten officers when they come and they have these conversations. Yeah, I know it's hard when the officer tries to justify it, but he's seeing it through his eyes and the culture of policing. And through his eyes and the culture of policing is wrong at times. It's extremely wrong. Like officer of color, I've seen his or her debating, and I totally see the viewpoint. Even though he was trying to be real objective, he wasn't understanding the community. That culture, that community, it's very common for after the clubs to go and chill, migrate somewhere where we all meet and we all talk. I've been a part of that environment. When you come out the clubs, where everybody's going, we all go and sit somewhere. The argument that the officer was giving when y'all was debating, well, it's 3:00 in the morning, the gas station is closed, you can break it. If you understand your environment, especially as a cop, if you understand the environment, you understand your area, you know what happens. That's why you have to be involved in your community. You know when the club is out, you know where everybody's going to hang out at. Mm-hmm. You know where they're going to be sitting and chilling. That whole group, right? From leaving the club, they go and they sit and they chill. I've been a part of that group to go sit and chill. Somebody might come through. It might be an argument or fight when it comes down to if something can occur. But not the whole group is going there to do something wrong. It's just a meet and greet location after the club lets out. But he gave a scenario or argument, he or she, I don't know who the officer was, as if it was dark. It was one vehicle in the parking lot breaking into, so he's on high alert. He doesn't know what kind of person, the person in the car is. Dude, like if you know the job, then you already know. I looked at the lot. If you look at the scene, it's lit up. It had several people in the background.
Right.
And you walking up to a car, like all the lights was out, the business was closed, there's nobody around, and you see a guy driving through, stopping. Come on, that don't even make no sense. And he says, well, he or she have stopped bad cops from being bad cops. You trying to make an argument that don't support that scenario. And then you wonder why people just start just going crazy at you. You got to ask yourself, right? And I've seen cops do that. I've seen cops police one way, and then I've seen cops with the same incident police a different way. Why are you so aggressive when you police in this way? When you over here, you was policing a different way. Like, you got to understand the environment that you're in and be able to understand the alert level, when you need to be on a high alert and when you just need to be regular. Like, come on, man, that just don't make no sense.
All right, you say high alert, right? With black people or people of color, we're very animated, we're very expressive. So to an officer, a white officer who doesn't know the culture is going to automatically think, oh, she's getting loud, her voice is escalating, she's moving her hands when she speaks. When I get mad, I move my hands, but that doesn't mean I'm going to try to attack you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So automatically, if you raise your voice, because you remember that one video with it was the two friends, and they had called the cops because the guy at the house pulled out a gun on them.
Right.
And she started expressing herself because one, she was fearful. Two, she was, trying to explain the situation, and she ends up getting arrested and thrown to the ground because he didn't like the way she was speaking to him.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I totally understand that.
When they see culture, when they see blacks or Hispanics, people of color, we're very expressive. We do get loud, but that doesn't mean we have violent tendencies. That's just the way we express ourselves. So I think that is probably where a lot of cultural miscommunication is at, because they, like you always say, you should police where you're from.
Right.
Culturally.
Not to say that you can't, but I think you have a huge advantage of policing the community where you're from.
Yes, because you understand.
Because you understand.
Right.
Yes, there was a fire. He did have a registered firearm in the rear of the vehicle. And now, if you look at the vehicle, the officer, he had the gun out already. So he identified the gun after he had the gun out. So, because you hear him yell gun, he's walking over to a vehicle with his gun out. And if you look at his charges, loitering, like who, unless there's a factor, right, that would drive your alert level to a higher status, why are you walking up to a vehicle with your gun out and you investigating a loitering charge? Like, that's not consistent with that level.
When he said gun, nobody moved.
Yeah.
No officer, his partners, nobody moved when he said gun, because it was non-threatening. The whole situation, the whole environment was non-threatening. So for him to yell gun, I think that was just his way, with him saying gun, him telling Edric to reach in to turn off the car.
Right.
That would have been a perfect way for him to get away and say self-defense.
Right.
Because nobody took him serious, not even not saying they took him serious, but then the situation was a non-threatening situation. Right. So they didn't even, go in to intervene.
Like the alert level for the other officers didn't increase. Yeah, they looked and they just walked on. Yeah, I seen the officer in the background.
Yeah,
but you know what? In that state, it's legal to carry a registered firearm.
Right.
Right. So the thing is, I guess the question I would have is, right, he had a firearm in the rear of the vehicle, right? Why are you, to turn around, right, to grab the firearm, right? I get there, you start thinking, you don't know who you're dealing with, you don't know if the gun's registered or not. So you walk up to the vehicle, you see the gun. Do you draw down on everybody in a state that of the population carries a gun. Do you draw down on everybody? And why would you draw down when the gun's in the back of is in the back? Right. It's not for him to actually get that gun. He would have had to turn all the way around, reach all the way in the back, and the officer was the tactical position that he was at. He had the advantage. He was standing in a position where he could have just had his hand on his gun and told him to come out the car, pat him down, check his ID, make sure the gun was registered. It just amazes me how people say, "Oh, well, he had a gun." Right. The majority of the people in that state carry guns. Right. Like that state is one of those states where you can have a gun, a registered gun.
But you know what I love sometimes when the people, you don't even know if they're supporters, but they just be coming up with the dumbest comments because I read them all, as if we don't do our research before we post. Right. We do our research before we post, so you can't comment and say, "Oh well, he had a gun." We know he had a gun. That state doesn't author. Yes, we know because we've done our research. We're not going to we're not going to post something that we haven't fact checked. And if we are wrong, we do come back and repost a video with an update. So for people who are saying that, I guess we're not, what is the word I'm looking for? We don't know what we're doing?
Hockey rolls 3.9. He didn't what? What are you saying? Because I was trying to add you.
Most states, we have people waiting, but most states require a person to notify a police officer immediately of the presence of a gun. He didn't.
That's not true. That's not true. Can you imagine the NRA would go crazy if you had to notify the police when you have a gun? Right. The NRA would go crazy. The Second Amendment the Second Amendment protectors, you know how they get when you start talking about restricting any type of gun movement requirements. That is totally not true. That's not the case. I worked the state as a police officer where you can literally just carry a gun, and they didn't have to tell me that they had a gun. And most states that have that, right? Most states that have allow you a citizen to carry, they don't have to tell you. They don't have to tell you that. So I don't know what state you're in that said it. If you want to DM me the state that you said that requires each citizen who has a gun to tell the officer, DM me that state and I'll look it up. When we start posting, I will definitely look that up.
Look up Philandra
that's that. Yeah, you didn't have to find that.
He said he had a gun.
Right.
He said he was pulling up for his.
Right, he said he had a right. He said he had a gun.
And he was pulling out his.
He said, "I'm a licensed carrier. I have a firearm." And look what happened. That's a courtesy. If you go to any safety firearm training school, they advise you. It's not a requirement, but it's a courtesy to let the officer know if he sees the gun, then he's not so on high alert. Because 9 times out of 10, when a person tells you they have a gun, right, they're registered. The people who don't tell you they got the gun and you find it, those are the ones you really got to worry about. But the person says, "Yeah, I got a gun," or the gun is in plain view. Those, that's normally a law-abiding citizen registering a gun. But on the officer's end of the spectrum, he still don't know. So there's certain parameters, there's certain indicators that he has to, I guess, keep in mind when he's dealing with you when you do have a gun. I've stopped several people who had guns and license, permits. I mean, you just got to know how to deal with that type of individual. And the way you deal with it is not have everybody at gunpoint. Like, that's just not how that works.
Okay.
Any officers want to join the conversation? Anybody want to add something?
Okay, so wait. So OG Marshall said it's not that they aren't familiar with different cultures, it's that a lot of them don't want to be familiar. You think that's true?
I don't, I can't really say if they don't want to be familiar. I worked with a lot of cops, right? just didn't know, and a lot of them came to me after I'm telling them, like, yo, listen, the reason why you're having problems is because y'all reading things wrong. You taking a heartbeat as a consideration of somebody's doing something wrong. Did anybody ever tell you that that's a bad indicator? If you coming from a community that officers are very excessively aggressive, they're going to be nervous when you approach them. And then when I started telling them that, they like, wow, damn, nobody never told me that. And then I had these are white officers. They was like, yo, I'll never use that again. I never looked at it that way. So to say like they just don't want to, I mean, I'm just telling you my experiences. There's almost 1 million officers out here. I can't speak for all of them. I just tell you guys about training, policy, procedure, because what I'm familiar with and my experience as an officer. You have officers who turn people. You don't hear about it. I've been a part of, because I was a union vice president, so I get to see disciplinary. I've seen many a times where the person who made the complaint was another officer complaining that he witnessed wrongdoing from another officer. But I don't get mad at you because you don't see that. So if you all constantly seeing aggressive and that's your experience, then yo, that's your viewpoint. It's been made by your experiences. The only reason why I can say on the flip side of that, because I experienced that.
Okay. So I guess we can go. We have like 3 people waiting.
All right. We had a few people. We try to keep everybody involved, but this is how Loomis.
She was first.
Okay, let her come in.
I think it's a she. I don't know.
Thanks, y'all, for all the love and support. We had 18,400 supporters.
Thank you so much.
We did that in 7 months, I believe it is. So I do appreciate the support. Y'all telling me that we're in the right direction. Just go ahead and keeping this comment, moving this to a podcast.
It's called
The Box.
The podcast